In my last tutorial, I showed you how to create concertina wire in Blender. You can find a link to that video in the description below. Today, we're building on that by tackling traditional barbed wire, which are made of straight metal strands with small, evenly spaced barbs alongside it. I'll show you how to model the barbs, that classic twisted wire design. Next, we will set it up along a security gate, and finally, we will texture it. Let's begin. So to start making this barbed wire, we're going to start by making the barbs first. So to do that, let's bring in a circle, Shift A, Mesh, and Circle. 32 vertices should be okay. We're going to go into edit mode and let's go up to top view. First, what we'll do is in vertices select mode, you can press 1 for that. We're going to select this vertice over here and then press Ctrl I to invert that selection. Then we'll press X and delete vertices. So with that deleted, we have this one vertice over here to the left. So we're going to go back into object mode. Let's go back to front view and we're going to go over here to the add modifiers and search for screw. With that modifier, let's bring it up a bit here and then do about 3 iterations. You can bring this down if you want, or you can also edit it by pressing S, Z, and then bringing it down. This should be okay. So let's apply this modifier by either hovering over it and then pressing Command A or Control A. Or you can just go here and hit apply. So now we have this screw that we can work with. I'm going to go into side view so I can get a better look. The next thing that we want to do is we want to add a subdivision surface just to kind of smooth out these so it's not as jagged. So what I'll do is I'll go back into modifiers, add modifier, search, and then subdivision surface here. 1 should be okay, 2 won't make a difference, so let's just do 1. And that smooths it out a lot, so let's just apply that. We want to extend these vertices, this one here and then this one at the end. So with this one selected, I'm going to press E, and that will create an extra one, and then we can move it over to maybe here. Let's actually move it out to about here, that should be okay. And then the same thing for the one at the bottom, press E, and then move it out to here. So now we have this going on. Let's go back into side view. Of course, we'll hit rotation and scale and origin to geometry just so that everything is good. And now we want to convert this to a curves to give it some thickness. So we'll go up here to object, scroll down to convert, and then curve. Once that is done, you're going to want to hit this button here to data and scroll down to where you see depth and give it some thickness. I think this is okay. We're gonna have that coil nice and tight, and then go back into edit mode. And I see that now that it's thick, I kind of want this to be a bit longer, so I'll just highlight this and just move it over a bit, say here, and then move it over to here. I think there's a lot of space between here, so it could do with another vertex in the middle. So I'll just highlight these two, right click and hit subdivide, and then that'll give it one in the middle. Same one for here, right click, subdivide. Perfect. And now we want to hit shade smooth just to make it nice and smooth. So right click, shade smooth. With barbed wire, it's always pointy at the end. So we want to do that effect to ours. So we'll highlight this, press Alt or Option S, and then scale it down. And then you can press 0 to bring it down to that point. Same thing for here, Alt S and 0. You want, of course, a gradual transition. So you can also do is select this vertex and scale it down a bit so that it matches. Same thing for this side, Alt S, Option S, and that's good as it is. So now we have our barb. We can also edit this if we want. If we want to make it a bit thicker, that could be fine. But for now, I'm just going to leave it like this. So now we want to make the actual wire itself that will stretch inside of this. For now, I'm going to hide this by pressing H, and then I'll go into top view. So we're going to get another circle again. So we'll hit Shift A, Mesh, and Circle. This one doesn't need to have that many vertices, so I'm just going to narrow it down to about, let's do 16. We can even do 12, so let's just do that. We want to have 2 wires that twist around each other, and we'll do that with the screw modifier. So first of all, I'm going to go into object mode and move this over just a little bit. What that does when you move it in edit mode is that you can move the object, but then the origin point stays the same. So we'll go back into object mode and I'll search for a mirror modifier. So we'll do mirror, and that's great so that it's the exact same. And if I want, I can move it over without it damaging. I don't have to duplicate and then try to coordinate exactly where it goes. Then what we'll do is we will do a screw modifier. So let's add a modifier, search, and screw. Right now it doesn't look that good, but once we go into front view and we increase the screw, you can see that it goes up and we'll have that helix shape that we desire for the wire. And let's bring this to about 15. Let's now bring back the barb, and then once that barb is brought in, we can scale the wire just so that fits right inside there. Eventually we want to join them and repeat, so what I'll do is I'll move this in just a little bit, just so that the coil actually hides where it is. To join them first, we'll need to apply all the modifiers. So what I'll do is hit apply, and then for the barb, I'll convert it back into a mesh. So object, convert to mesh. And then the last thing I'll do before I join them is I'll select it, origin to geometry, rotation, scale, and then I'll select everything and then press Ctrl J to join. Now that they are joined, we want to do an array for them. So we'll go here again to add modifier, array. We want to set it to the z-axis so that it goes up instead of to the side. So the z, and then let's first set it to 1. It's doing its job, but we want them to blend into each other. So what we can do is we can maybe scale the z down to 0.9. So as you can see, it works. The barb itself is hiding each of these coils, the wires. So what we can do then is just increase this count to here. Let's actually bring it down a bit so I don't have to zoom in that much. And now we have our beautiful barbed wire. To be able to manipulate this all you want, you need to bring in a curve. And with that, we're going to add a Bezier curve. So let's do that, shift, curve, Bezier. Let's zoom in for a second. It's at the bottom. We'll go to the top and let's scale it up a bit. We can actually scale this down too a bit as well. Connecting objects to curves is a little tricky, and the key thing that I found is to make sure that the origin point, so this yellow dot here, and the origin point of the object and the curve line up. Let's just move this over. As you can see, the origin for the Bezier is here. The easiest way I found is to connect it to the beginning of one of these. So what I'll do is in edit mode, select this one, Shift S, cursor to selected. So now it snaps it to there. And because we want the origin to go there, it is as simple as going to Object, set origin, origin to 3D cursor, and now that is snapped there. So let's move this object over so that it kind of sits on top of it like so. Let's rotation and scale just to make sure everything is legit. Not everything is lined up. We're going to bring in a curve modifier for the barb. So we're going to add curve, add modifier and curve. And you're going to use your eyedropper tool to select this Bezier curve. Let's do that. Right now it's on the x-axis. You're just going to have to play around with this deform axis so that it matches up. So I'm going to try Y. Let's try Z. So it matches up, but as you can see, it's a bit stretched out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if that works. Fixing the count works. What you can also do is you can scale it in. So right now I have it scaled on the Z axis, and that should be okay. Like that. That looks about right. Let me scale it in a bit more, like so. That is perfect. And then what we can do is we can play with the arrays, and so that it lies flush with the end. Let's just double check it. That looks perfect. Everything is in proportion. Very nice. Cool. Now that everything matches up, now the magic happens. We can reproduce this as many times as we want by first extending the Bezier curve. So you select the Bezier curve, go to edit mode. You can see this small dot here, so we can box select, highlight it, maybe scale the end down a bit, and then we can hit E to extrude. Let's just rotate this down. I kind of want to make a bit of a curvy one, so let's just move this down a bit so we can rotate the ends by pressing R. We can also make it three-dimensional so it's not lying flat. So let's, for next extend, let's just press E and then G and Z so that it goes up. To extend the barbed wire all the way to the other end here, it is as simple as just increasing the count of your array. So let's just select that and then just increase the count, and boom. You can have a lot of fun with this. In the next scene, I'll show you how to apply it to your model, how to apply it to your scene. So we have a simple scene here that I modeled out, and for this one we want to put the barbed wire on this side, so the top of the gate right here. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to bring my barbed wire and my controller in. To move them both, what we can do is we can just box select them. I'm going to go in the top view for this one. And then first what I'll do is I'll just move it over a bit so it lines up right here. I want to do 3 rows of barbed wires going up and down here. So let me go into front view and then bring it down. I'm just going to spend a bit of time just aligning it. For scale, I think this is way too big. So with both of them still highlighted, I'm just going to press S to scale about here. I kind of want it going in one line here with maybe just a bit of variation. So that shouldn't be too much. So I'll just move it up to here. All right, that is looking quite good. I'll still scale it down a little bit actually. This barbed wire will represent the first, and then I'll copy it and then put 2 up here. What we want to do is extend the barbed wire all the way to here. So like I showed you before, we can select the controller, the Bezier curve, go into edit mode, select that vertice, and then I'll just hit E. And then what I'll do is I'll give it a slight curve, maybe a slight variation. For the first one, that should be all right. And then maybe just move it over to here. Press R to rotate. Let me turn on screencast keys. What we'll do next is we'll just go into the barbed wire and just increase the count so that it goes all the way over to here. So now we have our first barbed wire. That is looking great so far. We can copy this and then move it over on the y-axis so that it's about here. We'll need to move it up as well so that it matches, or so that it sits nice and flush with the post. And with this, we can add a bit of variation to the curve. Right now I can see that there's a vertice here and a vertice here, but I want to have a bit of curvature here. So we can select this one, we can select this one as well, and right click, and where is subdivide? Right click and subdivide. And we have this new vertice in the middle. We can scale that down and we can maybe move this here. What I like about this is that you can play around with the variation. These right here will, just play around with this until you kind of get the result that you'd like. And we'll do the same thing for the last one. I'm not gonna play around with that much. I think it looks good as is. Actually, maybe I'll do a slight adjustment just so that it looks a bit. When you're done with this, you can copy it over, box select everything, D, copy over to the other side. And that is actually looking not bad. I do want to give it a bit of variation, so I'd like to just mirror this, how this looks. I can easily press Ctrl M, which brings up the mirror, and then let's mirror it on the X-axis. And then with everything still selected, Just hit G and move that over to here. The last thing we want to do is we want to actually shade this. Let's go into rendered mode. I'm just going to drag open a window here. We'll go into shader editor. This is not going to be anything too complicated. We're just going to have a metal color with not little roughness. So we'll go here. We'll name this Barbed Wire. Let's zoom in there so that we can see what we're doing. We'll just drag this down a little bit just to give it that silverish color. Let's turn the metallic up a little bit, like so, and the roughness a bit like that. Now we have this one textured already, so let's do the others. This is as simple as selecting every one and then selecting the one that you textured last so that that is highlighted. Hit Ctrl L and then link to materials. Now everything should be texted barbed wire. So let's see it with it rendered and then just see it without. All right. Thank you very much for watching this tutorial. I hope you found it very helpful and we'll see you next time.